this one. It's in Life at its best. It's intellectual proof. To ask for a purely intellectual proof of the existence of God is like asking for the privilege of being able to see with your ears.
Yeah.
I don't know why I like it.
Good.
Very good.
And I don't know where it's from Baba. I just don't know where from, because it's on a really old piece of paper. Do not listen to the voice of the mind. Listen to the voice of the heart. Mind wavers. Heart does not falter. Mind fears. Heart is not daunted. Mind is a house of doubts, reasonings, and theories. The heart, when purified, becomes the dwelling of beloved God. So get your heart rid of low desires, temptations, and selfishness, and God will manifest in you. Jai Baba.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Someone put that to music too.
That's what the whole book is about.
Do that.
Clearing out the warehouse, the overcrowded and stuffed warehouse, so Baba can live in us. Yeah. Here's a quote. We probably have time for it. This is from the Trust. From the Discourses. Spiritual effort demands not only physical endurance and courage, but also unshrinking forbearance and unassailable moral courage. The world is caught up in Maya and is addicted to false values. Therefore, the ways of the world run counter to the standards which the aspirant has set for himself. If he runs away from the world, that does not help him. He will again have to come back to the world to develop that quality which would enable him to face and accept the world as it is. Very often his path lies through the world, which he has to serve in spite of not liking its ways. If the aspirant is to love and serve the world which does not understand him or even is intolerant towards him, he must develop infinite forbearance. Woo! Wow, that's intense.
I have a quick quote.
Yeah.
Far more blessed is the atheist who discharges his worldly responsibilities, accepting them as his honorable duty, than the man who presumes himself a devout believer in God, yet shirks the responsibilities apportioned to him through divine law, and runs after sadhus, saints, and yogis, seeking relief from the suffering which ultimately would have affected his eternal liberation. God forgives everything except hypocrisy.
And you know that last line, Baba said, God does not forgive hypocrisy, but the avatar does. That's true.
Wow.
Erich told us that. Yeah.
Interesting.
So there's hope for everybody.
Yeah.
There's an escape clause.
You're an hypocrite.
And Jack, did you have a quote for us?
Yeah, I read it yesterday, so I'm just going to paraphrase it a bit. It was in the quotes that Eric Solobaki sends. And they were asking Bob about miracles, and Bob said, "I don't do miracles. My name does." Saying my name.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. At one point, Baba said that his name is more. My name is more powerful than I am.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Hermes Ryder was driving up in his old convertible up on I-95 towards North Carolina, and it was a rainy evening, and all of a sudden an 18-wheeler jackknifed, and then another one started sliding towards him, and he screamed Baba's name as loud as he could, and all he remembers is waking up or coming back into consciousness of a sort, and he was on the side of the road, and the car was fine. It was just, facing the north. And he looked, and then when he was going to start the car, this is what he told me, he was going to start the car, and he turned around and looked, and the whole back of his car, right behind his seat, was shaved off.
Whew. Wow. No, a lot of Baba people have avoided, their car has been totaled, but they've been able to walk out unscathed. Yeah.
We have a recent case.
Hey, so we should have a few moments of silence here to begin. Jai Baba. The way, and most all of you know the way we do it. Angela will choose somebody to read one of the subchapters, and feel free to chime in or ask questions, whatever. I wanted to mention something this morning. I mentioned earlier that I was in the lagoon cabin this morning, and I tried to remember all of you in there without a list, and I probably got about 90% of you looking around. But while I was in there, I happened to think of Lynn Ott. Now, many of you know Lynn Ott. He lived right next to the center with his wife, Phyllis. He was a really fine artist and very dedicated to Baba. And also, he had absorbed all of Baba's books, and especially God Speaks. And I would say he was a real inspired intellectual as well. So you could sit down and talk to him about anything. But anyway, he told me this, that in 1966, he went to see Baba at Merzad. And he was doing fine until he got to the approach road, that long approach road going to Merzad. And he got terrified, panic-stricken, because in just a matter of time, a few minutes, he was going to be meeting God himself. And it was like Dorothy going to see the Wizard of Oz. He was like so scared that he had the impulse just to fling the door open and run out and into the fields and avoid this encounter. But he somehow managed to restrain that impulse. And so about 10 minutes later, he's ushered into Mandalay Hall. And he steps across the threshold, and his first impression of Baba is a little man sitting in a chair. And he felt so relieved and so calmed down and relaxed. And the first thing that Baba gestured with Erich interpreting was, "I am more human than you are." And so that was a great relief to him, and he felt very natural. In fact, Erich used to quote these words from Baba quite a few times over the years, where Baba said, "To be natural is most godly." He didn't say to be spiritual is most godly, to be natural is most godly. And I always took that to be not desire natural, but heart natural. And Darwin's book is about getting into your heart deeply enough so that you can, and to love Baba in your own natural way. So anyway, I just said I'd thought of Lynn Ott this morning. Okay, so Angela usually knows where we are in the book.
Yes, we are on page 44 in the book.
Doorway to the infinite.
Doorway to the infinite. Love Baba in any way you can. He is the doorway to the infinite. Baba says, "If you love me at your level, I will take you to mine." This is the whole secret. By loving him personally, we come to love him in an unlimited sense. I think that everyone who has come close to Baba spiritually also experiences him in the most personal sense with regard to his physical form. His form itself becomes a doorway to the infinite, but incidentally, en route, We experience the beauty of his form because he is, after all, the personalized divine beloved, the one we really can really love, really adore.
So just love him. Feel that he is part of your consciousness. Make him your spiritual path, your discipline or way, instead of some mechanical exercise or program. Meher Baba says of himself, I know the way and its labyrinths, for I am the way. I am the goal. Thus, we are able to enjoy the company of the divine beloved and participate in the goal to some extent if we tune into him with love. When we were around Baba, sometimes this actually happened with us temporarily. His consciousness was so dominant, both in the presence of individuals and among throngs of people, that at times one would be swept into his state of consciousness and would experience some of the unlimited freedom and beauty and sweetness of God.
Ooh. Beautiful.
Mhm.
Any comments? You know, there's one thing I remember Erich once said in Mandalay Hall, what does it mean to hold on to Baba's Dhamma? And we all gave, you know, there were must have been 20 or 30 of us, and people gave different answers. And in the end, Erich said, holding on to his physical form. You know, that form has the magic of opening the door to the infinite. And another thing that Darwin describes, and where this really happens. He was looking at Baba one time, I think it was during the 3 incredible weeks, and he was just feeling love, and Baba was removing veil by veil, the veils between him and Baba, and eventually he was just looking at divine love itself, and Baba disappeared. And then gradually Baba came back into form. So there you have the limited form and the unlimited ocean, you might say, right there in front of his eyes.
Yeah, Jeff, you know, that just sprung in my head. You were mentioning about when Darwin was up on the hill during the 3 incredible weeks with Baba. And I think Baba was at a little bit of a distance. And Darwin had been working with a lot of blocks that he had had for probably lifetimes. And he'd been working at giving them to Baba. And he was doing that work, but he hit a certain point where they were still there and he couldn't give them anymore to Baba. And then Baba was maybe, I don't know, 40 feet away or something. And all of a sudden this wave of love and power came over Darwin and kind of washed through him. Baba wasn't looking at him or anything, just washed through him and washed away like some of the remaining residue of these blocks that he had been working with, that he'd been trying to give up. And as they were leaving him, Darwin said he felt he wanted to get rid of them. He had been working for years and weeks, and he wanted to get rid of them, but he felt as they were leaving, he could feel himself hanging on to them.
Right.
And it just the power of how we hang on to the even things we want to get rid of. But Baba's love was too strong, and it just swept them away in that moment. And he felt cleaned and renewed. And that was just incredibly powerful. And then I think later on, Baba just kind of winked or something, acknowledged what had happened.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. In fact, he said he felt whole. Well, it's something from the 23rd.
Yes.
Psalm.
Yeah. From the 23rd Psalm, he felt completely whole, because we always feel like we're not completely whole. And that was, I guess, really was an incredible example of effort and grace.
Yeah.
Darwin had been making this great effort to give it all to Baba, to God. And he did the best he could, but they were still there. And then the grace came and washed through him.
Yeah. And that can still happen today, too.
Absolutely. And Darwin always emphasized that he had these incredible experiences with Baba, but I would say it many, many times that he's sure that we also have had that and can have that at any moment.
Yeah. Any other?
Yeah. Hugh Flick, go ahead.
Yeah, and in connection with what Jeff said about what Eric talked about in terms of holding on to Baba's Dhamma, and I remember Darwin saying something like that, but Darwin added that you could almost visualize yourself hugging Baba. And as a result, to me, when I think about holding on to Baba's Dhamma, I visualize hugging Baba.
Beautiful. Yeah. No. That's, he has us doing things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
The recent footage that I saw, that that film, I can't think the name of, but also in the Meher Center newsletter, the footage of Baba in the early 30s, 1932, 33, that she had, it was a hand cranked camera or something that Elizabeth used to take some of this footage in India and also Portofino. I'd never seen it, and it affected me so deeply, seeing Baba embrace everybody. It was just the other night I watched it, and I just could feel as if I was there, you know. I mean, it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it,
Yeah, it's on the center newsletter, right?
yeah.
All I wanted to say was from the 23rd Psalm, he was saying, "He restoreth my soul."
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it just touches me every time I read about that. Thank you.
That's the line that came to him after Baba gave him that experience. He restoreth my soul, my cup runneth over, I think. Yeah.
And Heidi, you had your hand up.
I wanted to mention the newsletter, in the recent center newsletter. There's also a video of a talk by Darwin. And it was really beautiful because he talked about connection with spirit, and kept referring to, of course, Baba being the doorway to the infinite. But before he had an opportunity to meet Baba, and he told his story about it, he knew Baba was the Christ. He knew Christ was on earth, if I'm getting this correct. And that he followed Baba as spirit, and spirit followed him. And he said something that just really touched me, was, you know, we all think that we have stories to tell about how we came to Baba, how we found Baba, and we do. But Darwin said something beautiful in this video. He said that being connected with Baba in spirit, that Baba will find you.
Yeah.
Baba will find you. And it's really interesting, since the pandemic, there were two people, one I was close with in high school, that I found out about Baba through him, and he recontacted me. I hadn't spoken to him about 15 years. He's become a Buddhist, but we were about 16 years old, and he had gone to a Pete Townsend concert in Philadelphia. And I couldn't go, I didn't have the funds. And he went, and he came back to tell me about it. And he had a Baba button on. And I said, "Oh, who's that? Where'd you get that?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "But it fell off of Pete Townsend and it landed in my lap." And I said, "Well, you need to go to the library with me. I want to photocopy the button." And so we're walking to the library, and I could feel spirit. I didn't know what to call it. And these two children crossed our path, and they were from a camp, College Settlement Farm Camp, which I went to. And there was a counselor there who was a Sufi. A lot of Baba lovers were counselors there, and I had gone to the camp. And he said, "That's Mayor Baba, the button, that's Mayor Baba." So we connected, and I wrote to the camp and became a junior counselor because I wanted to meet a friend there that I knew would give me more information about Baba, a Sufi from California who I'm still close with. And so it just, when Darwin said that Baba will find you, and you think about these situations, and the friend that recontacted me, this friend, he asked me about Mayor Baba almost immediately.
After 15 years.
No, it's 50.
Oh, 50 years. Oh, wow.
Yes, I was about 16.
Yeah, beautiful.
And then a week or two later, there was another fellow that got in touch with me, and he was a sort of a political radical. And he sent me a newsletter, and I called him back. I didn't know what he wanted. I hadn't spoken to him in about 50 years. And we talked for a while. And then he said to me on the phone, what about that Mayor Baba? Are you still, I said, I'm still following Mayor Baba. So it's important to, I think, connect with people in spirit, because everyone has their version of how they're connected with God.
Yeah.
And if you stay true to that, and I think Darwin, I just love him so much because he was just so true to himself, don't you think?
Definitely.
And with Baba. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to share that because it just touched me. So if you get a chance to see the video, see it. He's timeless. I mean, it was when he was younger, but you could just feel his timelessness, Darwin, especially about Baba.
Thank you, Heidi. Yeah.
All right, inwardly, we have to believe in the highest possibilities. Negative thoughts mean that we are being hoodwinked by Maya. It all boils down to working with Baba within, developing a sense of his companionship, and drawing closer and closer to him. This changes the tendencies of one's mind and heart. It's perking me up a little bit too. Drawing closer to Baba at the level of the heart by awakening inner feelings for him is what our effort is all about. We can do many things to help cultivate companionship with him. I think as we come to learn more about how he lived his physical life, which involved almost constant suffering for humanity, and how he has paid the price, so to speak, for our spiritual liberation, we will perhaps develop more feelings about him in a way of loving him. We can also comply to his we can also comply with his inner instructions, tune into his presence, and try to control what we think and believe as ways of drawing closer to him. Even writing letters to him that will never reach him in the physical can be helpful. I recall once receiving from Baba a reply to a letter I had written to him. He said in this reply, "Your letter brought you closer to me. In writing, we are pouring out our hearts. We are thinking of him, trying to reach him inwardly, trying to make that contact within, and trying to fathom his significance." Now, by the way, I'm in like bright light, so not sure how this screen's receiving it. Our thought has to be used in the process. It sounds like an impossible thing, but my experience is that we can be aware of him the more we think of him. We can learn to feel his presence. When I was at my job, I had to try to keep my heart going, keep my feelings, my heart center awake and active, feeling Baba's presence, even though my mind had to be occupied elsewhere. Of course, I was not always successful in remembering Baba through the heart center, but it is not something that you blame yourself for if you cannot do it. You just work at it. When you are taking up any kind of sport or skill, You're not likely to be top rate to begin with. You have to work at it. If you begin to experience Baba's presence, you will discover that it is not painful and unhappy work. It is a pleasant, happy, and blissful experience. In fact, you can experience happiness all the time by doing this work.
Well, being in a big city where there's a lot of demonstrations now and violence, these protests, it's hard for me to just keep from being, plus the pandemic, and being isolated by myself for almost 3 months now. So it's hard for me to just think of it as part of the plan, you know, and see the big picture and keep my mind positive. And, you know, I just wondered if you had any thoughts about that, because it seems to be getting worse.
Mm-hmm. Anyone to respond? One thing that occurs to me, it was known that Delia de Leon was a real worrywart. I mean, she worried. She was one of the Western Mandali from London. And during World War II, she was there in London. It was getting bombed.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so for someone who is even worries during peaceful times, you know, this was intense. And Baba sent a cable to her. I don't know if the exact wording, but he said to her, remain calm. If you remain calm, I can work through you. So he's saying that to one of his number one worrywarts. Remain calm. If you remain calm, I can work through you. And we don't know just how he does that. But anyway, I mean, that was just a thought that occurred to me, Tina. But anyone to respond to what Tina said?
There were a bunch of hands up before the question, so we'll see. Cindy, go ahead.
Well, it's similar, I think so, but the line negative thoughts mean that we are being hoodwinked by Maya. Yeah. And I like the term hoodwinked because it's kind of funny. And we're being hoodwinked by illusion. When we think, like, I was thinking about like everything going on, and this might help Tina, like death is not the end. So, but when we think death is the end, or being hated is the end, or whatever is the end, then it backs up everything that we experience in a negative way. When the fear of something ending, but love never ends. And just saying over and over again in my mind, love alone is real, God alone is real, all else is illusion, nothing is real but God, nothing matters but love for God, helps me remember the infinite that made the finite. But I love that negative thoughts would be like, for me, fear or negative thoughts about people or what's going on in the world means I'm being hoodwinked by Maya. I think that's like on Seinfeld, like when Newman would come, like Newman, like if the lower self comes, to have some sense of humor with it, even if it's so horrible, like we think that like someone could be actually murdered, their form can end, but nobody, like love is forever. So I just like the being able to take some of this business of living and dying with lightness. And we've all murdered and murdered, you know, we've all raped and raped, we've all done all those things, or will, God, maybe hopefully we've done most of those things, but to take with some lightness underneath, that helps me. And I like that phrase for that reason.
Beautiful, yeah.
And Hugh.
This, I really like this particular section because Darwin talks a lot about practicing the presence of Baba, presence of God, and reminds me of this the short treatise by Brother Lawrence called Practicing the Presence of God, and where Brother Lawrence would just carry on these conversations with God constantly as he was doing the gardening at the monastery or washing the dishes. So to me,
he did it for Jesus, yeah.
Yeah, to me, when Darwin talks about feeling Baba's presence, I think that's just so powerful.
And that was one of Darwin and Jean's favorite books, Practicing the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence. If it's a little book, but it's well worth.
Just with I know that, was it Tina who was speaking before? But I know that I am also a big worrier and I spend a lot of time worrying. And just something that really connected to me from that passage was when he talked about writing a letter to Baba. And I'm like an avid journaler, and I really love and I really get a lot of fulfillment from journaling to Baba or writing a letter to Baba. And yeah, I know that in myself, that's a way that I can try and sort of deal with any difficult emotions that are coming up. So I'm sort of putting it out there as a potential tool or technique that might help or might not, depending on your circumstances.
Beautiful. Yeah. Lovely.
And Peter, Soly.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, to me, I think her name was Tina. I take the subject very personally because me too, I've been a worry ward. I've worried all my life, and really, this isn't meant to offend, but it's just meant to illuminate, to say how I looked at God 25 years ago. I have a 25-year anniversary tomorrow, which is making me sad. I looked at God as being a dictator that could just cause me unspeakable pain at his whim. That's why I try to distance myself from people. That's one way. And I feel fortunate to be in several spiritual organizations where I actually went through a process with Mickey Kroger. And I asked him to take me through to do with forgiveness. And afterward, this very, very, very palpable voice from Mayor Baba that came through richer than it ever has been was telling me that it's all okay. Don't worry. He's the most powerful force, infinitely above all that he has. I'll say our back. He said my back, but our back. And when I look around at my reality that people remind me of, I have money a little bit of money in the bank. I have a roof over my head. I have food. I have resources. And then to step back, I remember in what was the name of the book? I love it. The Real Treasure. Erich said, or one of the Mondleys said, that everything in this universe is suffering. Everything. Everything is suffering. And also on a recording, Erich made a point of saying that we didn't cause this, whatever is happening. It wasn't us. And when I step to myself and say, I'm relatively okay, this is a subject I want to get into more about, is the power of his name. Because I would like to think that the power of his name doesn't just help us, but it also helps humanity in general. And that's why when people talk about they do meditations, they do mantras, Buddhism has theirs, Hinduism has theirs. The power of doing japa, I think, is not just so we are okay and we get closer to him or our consciousness, but really when I think of the humanity that's suffering by leaps and bounds, I think that taking his name and thinking of him helps them profoundly. I think if we're concerned about the rioting, take his name like you've never taken it before, with heart and soul. I mean, really, and project it toward them. And I'd say that's one profound way to actually help them when we really think we're powerless. So I think the power of our intention to guide his energy toward them into the universe is profound, and I think it's underestimated. And I had something, I got COVID tested, and I went from being in fear, and I'd say people would have to put their headphones on, and people would have to, if they don't like foul language, at how I reacted to myself thinking I have COVID, they'd have to leave the line, because I get very vehement about how I wanted to say I'm in control of this. But I do think that the power of taking his name can really help those other people that are suffering profoundly. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Yeah. Beautiful. No, there are a lot of things to say about taking Baba's name that maybe as we go along, that subject will come up again.
I also liked what you said, Peter, about not thinking of ourselves as powerless. Mary Ellen, go ahead.
I just wanted to offer that I've had a mixture of the same thoughts of Tina and of Hugh, not only through the pandemic, but through this past week, because I lived in Minneapolis for 40 years and so have some long, old, deep connections with people there and with the experiences that people are having. I feel Baba's presence so deeply now through the pandemic and through all of the unrest, because my sense is all the old systems are breaking down. And he's giving us not only the strength, but the opportunity to see and to feel new ways of being with him and new values. It's a very difficult, but there are glimmers that I sense frequently through these experiences. And I could offer explicit examples of the Native Americans stepping forward and guarding the white houses in their neighborhood, which I think is one of the most extraordinarily sweet, loving things. They completely and totally support the Black community, but they're also aware of how much effort and work has gone in. And so they are protecting the white people at this point in some of the neighborhoods in Minneapolis. To me, those are beautiful things that people are extending to each other and relating with each other, that I feel very privileged to be a part of and to be aware of. I just feel very strongly that Baba is busily at work, as painful as all of this is, in offering us new ways of thinking and new ways to ask questions.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hey everyone, very grateful to be here. So one of the things that comes to mind is what Baba sings on how to love God, and to I'm not going to say these right, but to remember that if we look at we're more fortunate than others, and to rob ourselves rather than robbing others, and that is one thing that puts things into perspective for me, because there is so much suffering, and to a degree that I, in my privilege, don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what that is, and I'm also reminded that in the 50s, I believe her name was Beryl Williams, who was a Black woman who was a Baba lover. When she walked in the room, Baba stood up. And he didn't do that for everyone. He stood up for her. And so just to remember that if I'm Baba, that, what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of how I relate to people of color, and how I understand? I do feel that systems are changing, that, every movement, every human movement forward has often come at, with unrest, and so I'm trying to be very compassionate, understanding, but we are also, Terry and I are also doing prayers for everyone on all sides of it, for every single players that we can think of, like groups of players, and that really feels good, to be in prayer, because I know it works for me. I know it works, and I feel it when I feel it. And to be just to remember to stay with Baba. I think it's a real thing. And to remember how, just like Baba said in How to Love God, it's to remember how fortunate I am, how really, really fortunate I am. Anyway, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Larice.
Good morning. I've been reading Brother Lawrence here myself, so it was mentioned, and there was this one paragraph that basically I had to stop, and that's all. It was like one paragraph. That's it for today, Gabi. So this is, I'd read it to you. And he leaves a place where he leaves a blank, and I'm going to put in the word Baba. I pity you much. It will be of great importance if you can leave the care of your affairs to Baba and spend the remainder of your life only in worshiping God. He requires no great matters of us, a little remembrance of him from time to time, a little adoration, sometimes to pray for his grace, sometimes to offer him your sufferings, and sometimes to return him thanks for the favors he has given you and still gives you in the midst of your troubles, and to console yourself with him the oftenest you can. Lift up your heart to him, sometimes even at your meals and when you are in company. The least little remembrance will always be acceptable to him. You need not cry very loud. He is nearer to us than we are aware of.
Lovely. Well, as I said, Darwin and Jean loved this Brother Lawrence in his way.
And Tina, this is a response to your original query, but I've heard many, many echoes in many ways better than I can express it, certainly in what Brother Lawrence just said. Tina, I also am alone without being in personal contact with another human being for over 3 months now. And I wanted to reread one sentence here of Darwin's, which I'll read it and then I'll comment on it. It sounds like an impossible thing, but my experience is that we can be aware of him the more we think of him. We can learn to feel his presence. And it's been my personal experience and part of my survival, and I dare say flourishing during this time of COVID-19 and now riots in the streets of my city as well that basically tore apart all of downtown last night, is the more I focus on Mayor Baba, the more I make the conscious choice to think of him, to remember him, to read about him, to take his name, to do prayers as the woman on the phone just mentioned, and to think also what she was saying that Baba had said about the more you think of others. I find it, the more I realize how fortunate I am. And to me, it helps draw me closer to Baba, not even draw me closer. It's more like realizing he's already inside me. He's in my heart, and I can touch into my own heart where he resides and find that I'm not alone. And for me, it's been a wonderful revelation to realize that I'm actually feel like I'm growing closer to him in this time of isolation with him. As he said in different ways on various occasions, make me your constant companion. And he's sort of forced me or given me the opportunity to kind of take that seriously. And the more seriously I take it, the more joyful I find the results.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what Darwin is saying. Yeah.
Computer kept, I thought, well, Baba, if you don't want me to say anything, okay, I got the point. Kept freezing and stopping and stuff. Anyway, something that I was trying about all this, because so I missed a lot of what people have said, so I'm not sure if I'm repeating, but working with Baba's name and what he said about his name and the power of his name. So something I was trying last night, I watched the news. I watched, it was all Seattle, there was nothing else, and it was a mess, and it was horrible. And I watched it for a couple of hours while it's all going on. But what I tried to do, like Merwan and Balnatu taught us how to say Baba's name with our breath. So I'm trying to practice that, just say his name, you know, Baba, in and out, Baba. And while I was watching the news, and I felt like, I don't know if I'm doing any good or not. I don't know if I can help Baba or not. I know it's Baba's business. It was, but I felt like that was all I could do, was say his name and just watch it. And I kind of have a headache today, you know? But I'm wondering if more of us try to do that when we see things that are alarming like that, is just to say his name. It's kind of an experiment, I think, but it's like, let's see what happens. You know, it's like meditating on his name, because he says his name is, every answer is in his name, you know, he's got it. And I don't have any answers. I don't know anything, but I do have his name and I can say his name. And watching all this horrible stuff happen and this lack of consciousness, you know, people operating out of this, you know, just really low vibration. And then there's other people there that wanted to raise it. So it was pretty interesting and it was pretty terrifying. But anyway, it's like, I think the more of us that can do things like that, I think maybe Baba can use us. I hope. That's just what I hope. Anyway, thanks, Jai Baba.
It works, definitely. Yeah, Baba said he receives, in the discourse, he says he receives our song at the local level, spiritualizes it, and broadcasts it to the world at large. So you might have a little garage band, and you do a music, then you send it up to New York, they mix it, and then they put it on the airwaves all over the country. That's what Baba's doing with whatever little thing we do for him. He spiritualizes it and broadcasts it to the world. That was his words, yeah.
That's a great image. And Cliff.
Yeah, I'll tend to worry about things, and just addressing worry. Baba said that if you're worrying, he doesn't worry for you. But if you realize and think that I want to give this to Baba, then he really does help. So it's good incentive to know that he will worry for you and he will make it a lot better. So good luck with that, Tina. Jai Baba.
Yeah, Jeff, what is the actual quote?
Okay, this is one that Darwin wrote down in 1954 in the museum room at Upper Maribad. He had a little stenographer pad, and this is what Baba said: "Don't worry, let me do the worrying. I enjoy working things out. There is no use in you and I worrying. If you are going to worry, then I won't worry." The line, though, that I found very significant is, you know, don't worry, let me do the worrying. I enjoy working things out. So he actually likes working things out, you know, and when I'm worrying, I'm robbing him of something he likes to do. I mean, I think of that when I find myself worrying about something. I think, wow, I am robbing Baba. He would like to do the worrying, and I'm stealing that away from him. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's the quote.
Thank you. And Marvin.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little something to what Larisse had said about Beryl Williams. It was, I don't know if it was 52 or 56, there was a day in the barn where anybody in the community was free to come and meet Baba. And every time a Black person walked into the room, Baba stood up, every single time. And Margaret Crass was telling the story, and she said, "My dear, Baba never stood up for anyone. But that day, I think he was doing some great work prior to the civil rights movement."
Yeah. Right. No, that exactly, Marvin. That was right.
And Jeremy.
Yeah, a couple of things that you all have said, I'm forgetting which now, reminded me of a quote that I really like. And I don't know, I looked it up and I don't know if it was something Baba said or something that a Mandali member or someone else said about Baba. And hopefully one of you can share more. But the quote is, when you take one step towards Baba, he takes 100 steps towards you. Is that actually a Baba quote, or is that something someone said about Baba?
Baba said, if you take one step towards me, I'll take 10 steps toward you.
10 steps, okay.
That's what. Now there was a guy named Mark Palmer. It was a Baba person. He said Baba's 12-step program is you take one step towards him, and he takes 11 steps toward you. He was a great, very funny guy. He was off the wall. Yeah.
Could you say it again, Jeff? I missed it.
The Baba's 12-step program. You take one step toward him, and he takes 11 steps toward you. That's the 12-step program.
Just a quick comment on what Marvin had just said. That was May 17th, 1952, was the open day that he was referring to. And yes, Baba stood up for every single Black person that came in. And I have a very strong inner sense that Baba was directly precipitating what's happening literally right now and for the last, whatever, 60 some years since then on civil rights. And it's interesting that it's not just in America, but they're rioting in London and other places around Black Lives Matter and so forth. So to me, and other people have mentioned earlier, this all that's happening on the streets, etc., I strongly know that this is Baba's direct unfolding of his next steps. And there was one other point I was going to mention. Colored bathrooms. As Baba went to Prague, Oklahoma, I mean, heading out to California, but of course the accident happened. He encountered, as they would stop at rest stops and so forth, and Baba would use the colored bathrooms. They were all segregated, either whites or colored. And without a doubt, the avatar coming down and taking that role is unfolding in our present time, and not just in America, but I think across the entire globe. It's part of an essential part of his work.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one comment on the companionship. Darwin said there is many ways to cultivate companionship. One of the things that I found very useful was Baba's quote of, he said, "Think of me before you start and after you finish any work." And I found that immensely helpful to have and feel his companionship when we do that. It can be little things, before starting brushing and after finishing or brushing, before taking a bath, after taking a bath, and so on. So when I do this, we feel his companionship a lot more strongly. I just wanted to share that because that worked for me.
No, Bill LePage, I know, said he was a therapist, helping these corporations, and he felt uncomfortable about it. But Baba said, think of me before the session, and then be with your clients, and then think of me afterwards. And he did that, and he felt Baba, was covering for him.
All right, what Mayor Prasad said was very appropriate to what happened today, and I want to share that with you. Jennifer Tinsman came today with her family to take all her furniture and personal belongings out of the house here. And I was up all night, very emotional and draining, very upset, a lot of anger, anxiety. And all I kept thinking about is how I was going to tear her apart once I saw her. And so I got up this morning, and like it says here in the first line, negative thoughts mean that we are being hoodwinked by Maya. And that's what I had, a lot of negative thoughts. So I went into my little room and I prayed in front of Baba's little statue this morning with the Baba's prayer and then the repair of repentance. And shortly thereafter, Jennifer and her family showed up at the door. And as soon as I opened the door, I looked at Jennifer and I realized that I was still in love with her. And all that anxiousness and upsetness and anger and emotional feelings just dissipated. And I knew it was Baba that did it. It was festering in me for days because I knew this was coming. And it was amazing what he did to me. And everything went smoothly. I gave in to everything she wanted, and we parted basically friendly. I know she'll never come back to me, but at least I know I could be with her or see her and not have that anger anymore. And when she left, I followed her to a car and I said, for whatever it's worth, I still miss you very much. And then she drove off. So all I know is that all this anger and resentment is gone. And I only have one person to thank for that. And that's Papa.
Yeah, I think we've all felt Baba do something like that in our lives at some point that was impossible with our own efforts to actually be able to do such a thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I was even surprised at myself, the way I handled it.
Yeah.
This wasn't the old Paul who would have torn her to pieces for the way she hurt me, but I just couldn't do it once I saw her at the door.
Beautiful. The victory is his. Yeah.
He took those 11 steps.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very touching. Okay. The master help.
The master's help. Meher Baba loves us and wants to sustain us and share his consciousness with us. He wants to share the kingdom of God with us. It is always open. He wants to be our constant companion, and he will. If we allow him, I feel that he is even more accessible now that he is without his physical body. The more we can stay in his company inwardly, the more we are exposed to that divinely pure consciousness. And the more we will become free of the attractions that are really our weaknesses. To counteract our addiction to Maya, the Master imparts truth and dissolves false. By revealing himself inwardly, His truth supersedes any other value we are holding on to. As we make inward efforts to love Him, He helps in His own way.
A growing acceptance of the Master's intervention leads to increasing intimacy with Him, and we feel impelled to want to clear up the heart. Through His intimacy with the Master, we become in some measure a part of His consciousness. In other words, He takes us to His level when we identify ourselves with the infinite, the soul level of our being, which the Master represents. This is not something that we can imagine. The Master's love, which is given freely and internally, dissolves all samskaras and cancels out our addiction to Maya. Therefore, we must learn not to identify with our lower self. We must maintain the attitude and visualization of the goal or reality as already achieved. We must remain established in the freedom and positive attitude of truth realized.
Thank you. The word that strikes me, and I mean, this is something I struggled with, right there in the 4 lines down, He wants to be our constant companion, and he will if we allow Him. And it's because I've often pondered that, you know, I would be face to face with Him if I would allow it. He is already there. It's on my side. I have to be willing to let go of all of the veils, whatever that blocks that experience. I mean, I kind of feel like Baba is, well, just kind of going. One time I woke up, this is when I was living at the old Gateway, back on one of the beds at the back of the office. Yikes. This computer almost fell down. And I woke up, this is back in the 70s, I woke up and Baba flashed to me, you can live a good life, but does the world need another good life? Let me live your life. So I thought, well, I thought that was implied. I thought, you know, he could come in and do whatever he wanted, but he was actually waiting for my invitation. Can you imagine? Baba's at the threshold of my room with infinite knowledge, power, and bliss, and a whole ocean of love, and he has to wait for my invitation because love can't coerce, love can't barge in. And so so from then on, I would say, Baba, you know, you live this day with your love and light. You know, and for years I said, you live this light day for me. And then I thought after a while, why should he live it for me? Why doesn't he just live it? You know, but what I mean is there was some kind of resistance. I mean, we have to, I'm just saying for myself, he kind of brought home to me, I have to allow him, I have to invite him in because and he's always ready to live our life for us, not even for us. He's ready to live our life if we want him to. It doesn't take any great merit or virtue or anything. You know, he can fit into any Tom, Dick, and Harry. So anyway, that was a pivotal moment in my life, you know. So that phrase there of Darwin's, he wants to be our constant companion, and he will if we allow him. So there was some resistance, and I you know, I still have to deal with resistance. Why don't he just let him in, you know? But yeah, anyway, I just happened to think of that.
Paula, you had your hand up?
Yeah, and thinking about what Jeff was saying and Paul's story and all of us, what Baba is offering us with this pandemic is we're kind of talking about attachments, and we all have really deep attachments, and it's hard. This has been a really hard time because what Baba's doing is, I know my attachments are just right in front of my face, you know, and it's like he's giving us the opportunity to give him our attachments. You know, and it's not easy. It's really hard. Maybe that's part of the resistance that Jeff was talking about, you know. I resist it too. And actually last week I was going a little crazy because I couldn't see my kids. I mean, I was really losing it because, you know, it's been about 4 months for me. And just looking at that, you know, he's giving me an opportunity just to look at attachments, and it's not easy, but he's helping us. He's right here. He'll help us. He's not going to leave us in the lurch, you know. We can't do it without him. We really can't. You know, there's sanskaras that are deep, and there are deep wounds and deep scars and all kinds of things. The depth is, you know, and Baba can handle it if we let him. Jai Baba.
Yeah, thank you, Paula. Yeah. We can't see you, but we hear you loud and clear.
And Anthony Cortez.
Yes, thank you so much, Jeff and Paula, for sharing. Yeah, one of my biggest motivations for letting Baba take over and live my life more and more as I'm able to is I just see that when I'm there trying to make these decisions, me ego, me lower self, I feel like I end up making a mess, and the more complicated the situations become, the more I realize I can't do this. You know, I can't think my way through this. I can't figure this out. And especially in the pandemic, I'm a registered nurse, and there's some things that have came up in the last couple months that have been completely beyond my capacity to make certain decisions, with work, with family, with just everything. And, you know, it's just gotten to that point a few times where you sit down and quiet. And I know I've looked at the part of myself that's struggling and fighting and trying to make the decision and trying to look at all the different factors and see what's the best path. And I realize I can't find my way through it. It's too much. There's too many things. And then at that point, you know, it's like it finally goes quiet and you're just sitting there, and in that nothingness, just something emerges out of that, you know, a sudden knowing, or the phone rings, you know, and then somebody calls and then the answer is there. So as difficult as some of the things have been these 3 months, with seeing how we don't have to figure this out, you know, it's like we have to take in all the different things going on, and then once we've taken it all in, we're allowed to just sit with it and give it to him. And I found myself talking to him and just saying, you know, Baba, I can't find my way through this. You know, this has finally really reached the point where there's so much on the line. I can't do this. And it's just been a complete reassurance and a complete shift in consciousness that I don't feel like I have to do it anymore. And, you know, there's all these, it's not like the decisions are done being made. There's still a lot more to come, but just, you know, a good 80-90% of the worry just feels gone now, because I don't feel like it's my battle to fight anymore. So it's been one of the biggest learning experiences I've had to go through. And sometimes it's a blessing in disguise when decisions and things get so big that you're not able to deal with it anymore, because it feels like the surrender comes at that point when it's beyond your capacity. And then you realize, wow, I don't have to do this. I don't have to own this. And maybe it's not mine to do and own anyway. So thank you for letting me share.
Beautiful, Anthony. Beautiful. Yeah, that sounds, and being a nurse at a time like this, not easy.
Yeah. Laurice, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Wow, I am really having a profound experience in this meeting. So in terms of making Baba a constant companion and being hoodwinked by Maya, and even like, you know, take Baba's name before and after activities or work. You know, what is that like for Baba to be my constant companion and taking his name? And I know there's so many times, like even having read Marwan's thing that came out after he died, but it's also in the back of his book about, you know, taking Baba's name all day and having it be like, this is a paraphrase, but something like a babbling brook in the background of your thoughts, you know, like and I have had that experience where, you know, I played music and I've taken Baba and Mira's names and I think about, and then there's times I just forget. And what kind of occurred to me is that what if, you know, and someone was saying, you know, about all our attachments and you know, the ego, I know that my ego is attached to all sorts of stuff, of course, my sanskaras, right? But I also know that the way people have breakthroughs is so the ego will prevent us from wanting to have a breakthrough or move ahead or going to change because it wants to hold on to old systems or old ways of being. And of course, we're all being presented with many different ways of being now that, you know, and if I was a Christian and I said, oh, this is the second coming of Jesus. What if I had conviction that Baba, this was Baba, you know, really come again to break all the, you know, he talked about, you know, when he, you know, this is another bad paraphrase, but something like, you know, when he said the word, everybody in the world would awaken. And, you know, whenever he said that word, and what if this was that time? What if literally this was that time where I get more time, that I'm not commuting, that I can, you know, come on these meetings. I mean, how great is all this? Like every time I went to Myrtle Beach, I would go to Effort and Grace, but it was like 2 or 3 times a year, you know, like this is amazing. What if this was Baba manifesting in all these different forms and breaking my attachment to this and to that and to this and to that, and asking me to remember him all day long and to make him my constant companion and giving me the opportunity and allowing me to have a much larger Baba community as many days as I want, as many times a day as I want. Wow. So that was the idea I wanted to share. That was like, wow, this could be what is happening, you know? Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful.
The gate of the heart. We are meant to see with the eyes of the heart and know with the eyes of our consciousness. Seeing with the eyes of the heart is a mystical seeing through which we perceive the inner path, the inner love of God. We see with the glow of love at the heart level. We must assert the supremacy of this glow of love by loving the Master, loving Baba. Love is not maudlin sentimentality, affection, or an emotion, but something much more refined and pure. It is a sense of oneness, illumination, unlimited freedom and knowledge, a knowing wisdom and insight. It is the beam of reality of truth. Love is reality. Reality is perhaps the best word because love causes the veils of falseness, of unreality to fall away. Mayor Baba says that as we put our focus on him, he opens the gate of the heart and releases the glow of love which changes our consciousness at the thought level. When we assert the glow of love in the heart, light is revealed. The heart then no longer accepts such misconceptions as low self-esteem. We do not try to love people per se, but instead make efforts to achieve the glow of love in the heart. This glow results in a radiating love and leads to a natural giving out of love.
Yeah. Ooh. Any comments? I'll just say at the beginning, there is such thing as an eye of the heart. I mean, it actually exists, you know, but maybe we'll get into that at some point. But you can actually see with the heart from down below, from the heart area. Yeah.
So in terms of thoughts, you know, it just dawned on me in the last 1 year that Baba used to randomly ask people, what are you thinking? I never understood that part, but I think in the past 1 year, what I have come to realize is that he was actually planting the seed in all of our minds to pay attention to what our thinking is. You know, what are our thoughts? Are our thoughts focused on him or something else? So I thought that just occurred to me in the past 1 year. You know, whenever our thoughts are going somewhere else, we find ourselves asking, what was I thinking? And if it was not focused on him, you know, we come to realize that and try to focus on him.
Yeah.
I think he was planting the seed in all of our minds by doing that. It was not just specific to that person that he was asking, what are you thinking? But it was meant on a much, much larger scale.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, to you know, redirect the thoughts, trains of thought, so they're not going to Missoula, Montana, but Grand Central Station.
Yeah. And Douglas, go ahead.
First, I wanted to say back to Tina in New York and a question about how living at this time, particularly alone, and one of the ways that has helped me with this, although I'm not alone, is to view this as a retreat of sorts, and a retreat inside. And part of that process has been working with this book. So it's so wonderful and auspicious to have found this group, which I just found about a few weeks ago and finally figured out how to get on. But I wanted to put that out as a way of connecting with Baba on in some sense, a more disciplined form, I guess, through kind of contemplation and meditation. And the other thing I wanted to say about this particular, the gate of the heart, is down at the bottom here, he says, the heart then no longer accepts such misconceptions as low self-esteem. And to see something like self-esteem put in such a, in a way, elegant and simple manner of working with it, which is through love and through love of sort of holding love of your own heart, in a sense, and Baba's heart within. It's wonderful, wonderful. And lastly, I guess I would concur, Jeff, about the eyes of the heart. I've been working with that too, and sort of visualizing that and trying to work with it, which is an interesting challenge, which I encourage people to join in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's can see your way a little bit through the jungle. You know, here's a nice quote that's connected with this, where he talks about Baba. This is Baba who said, "Emotions and feelings are the creation of mind and energy. Love is the creation of the soul." I mean, that's very interesting. There's a distinction. We often think of feelings as love. Emotions and feelings are the creation of mind and energy. Love is the creation of the soul. Yeah.
That's great.
Comes from the other dimension into us, you might say.
Damien, go ahead. You have to press the button to unmute.
I was moved by that great revelation of that Baba would always ask us, "What are you thinking?" That was not just for that person. That it was his way of teaching us. Are we thinking of him, or are we thinking of something else? And I just remember how both Darwin and Merwan Jesawala, you could almost see them. They would be interacting and focusing with many people and functioning very well in the world. But you could also almost see them periodically stopping and tuning back into Baba within. I remember, being in their presence. Each one of them would do that periodically. It might be a moment, after they had just said something, they would be like refocused on him. So they were a great example of kind of how to live and go through your life, but kind of turning your vision back inside to Baba.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed when Darwin gave his discourse meetings, right afterwards, while there was all the hubbub after the meetings, I would notice he would slip over to the bathroom. And I'm sure he just went in there, locked the door, and just gave it all to Baba. I don't think he flushed the toilet, and clean out.
Every time.
That honoring Baba by giving the whole thing to him.
Yeah.
And Paula, go ahead.
Okay, Jeff, talk about breadcrumbs. I want to know more about the eyes, seeing with the eyes of the heart. And that was like a cliffhanger, you dropped. So is there some place, a source or something, or some place to find more about it?
I don't know. I mean, Baba has mentioned it a few times. And of course, Darwin mentions it here. But I haven't heard that mentioned that much. Even from the Mandali. I mean, even though they were operating from such a place, I would say. But no one really articulated it very much. Asfandyar did. Asfandyar Vesali, who was from one of the Prem Ashram boys. But it's through the eye of the heart that you actually see God face to face. You see Baba face to face.
Well, I remember you talked about that after being with Asfandyar. I remember that. And that you had an experience of that, right? Of Baba
It happened to me, but that was under the influence of Asfandyar, where the eye of the heart, which I didn't even know existed, suddenly I saw Baba right in front of me. I mean, like just real. I mean, there he is. And then the moment I said, wow, I'm seeing Baba, bam, he was gone. Because there can't be two of you, you know. There's got to be just you. The ego can't come into the picture. It happened a couple of times to me, but as soon as this Fondi Argo went, I no longer was able to access that site. But I'm sure that we do in trying to figure out what the most loving thing to do is in our lives. We are consulting the eye of the heart to see our way. But we may not be aware of it, you know. But that heart, just like with Paul, you know, your heart saw how to be in this situation. You know, you may not know how, you weren't witnessing being in the eye to see, but you were seeing. And I think that is being developed in us. So our heart can guide us in all of these like impossible situations, complex situations, to be able to see what love wants to do, what Baba's love is indicating to do. And it is a very subtle thing. And there's a lot of, as Darwin would say, trial and error, you know, so that you see whether you were seeing with the eye of the heart or whether your mind was just seeing something. You know, you luckily you get feedback. But that heart can go on developing so that we can see our way through this world, this very dense and chaotic world in much of it. Yeah. Hey, any last comments? Otherwise, we'll have a few moments of silence. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. So Gabriella and then Marvin, you had your hands up if you want to unmute yourselves, after which it is unmoderated chat time. Go ahead, Gabriella.
I'm in the silence now. I'm ready to pass on that for later.
Okay, good. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that it's been such a blessing from Baba to have these Zoom activities, because, you know, it's like before I'm in the world, I'm involved and absorbed in it, and, you know, Maya's in the forefront, you know, even though Baba's there and we remember him, but you get caught up more in the world, and, you know, depend on the gatherings and the trips to the center to fill yourself up with Baba. But here I am, I'm not even home. I'm with family, but I'm really the only Baba lover in the house. So, you know, in that sense, I was still isolated in a way. But through these daily Zoom activities, Baba has been brought so much more into the present for me. And I'm thinking about him so much more of the time now that, you know, that's the wonderful thing about this, that he created this during this, you know, period of isolation for everybody. So in a sense, there's been such a wonderful positive to it. And lastly, because I got to go attend to dinner here, that last subchapter, you know, I think it was pretty straightforward. I think it could be summed up in the beloved God prayer. Help us all to love you more and more and more and more and still yet more.
Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Yeah, Jai Baba. Thank you, Marvin. Yeah. Any questions or any?
I've got a quick comment.
Yeah.
I Googled the eye of the heart, and one of the things that came up was St. Augustine said The whole purpose of life is to restore to health the eye of the heart by which God can be seen.
Wow.
So I know it's in the Bible somewhere.
Yeah.
Just mention that. I'm
Yeah.
very curious about that too. Thank you for sharing about that, Jeff.
Yeah. I think Eckhart, not Eckhart Tolle, the other Eckhart, Meister Eckhart. The eye with which we see God is the eye with which he sees us.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yeah. That's the meeting place. But, yeah, we have all this in us, and Baba is awakening this day by day, little by little.
By the way, a comment that came to me when a lady talked about the babbling brook, thought about monkey mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
the monkey mind.
but yeah, monkey mind.
And you know, one of the things about the monkey mind, that this was what Erich, I mean, one of the keys of getting rid of the monkey mind is drop your consciousness down to the heart level and keep it down there at that level. You can't be in your heart and think at the same time. You have to kind of go upstairs to think. I mean, thoughts are upstairs. If you can keep your consciousness at the heart level, then the disturbance of that mind yakking and yakking all the time, you get some break and relief from it. I don't know if that makes sense, but try going down to your heart area and see if you can think at the same time. Be aware of the sensation in your heart.
Jeff, I wanted to make a quick comment. Thank you so much for that. It's very interesting. I was talking to a friend about this a couple of months ago. It's so interesting how in a lot of the esoteric literature, I mean, other things I used to read a while ago that talk about your your chakras, your centers in your head, the third eye and crown as being the highest places for consciousness to reside. And then it turns out that the heart is actually the place to center your attention and experience. So I always found that interesting, seeing that shift when I came to Baba, of realizing that, wow, it's about the heart. It's not about these higher experiences up here. I don't know if you had anything to say about that. It's just an interesting thing.
Yeah, no, you're right. If you can keep at the heart level, Darwin, of all the different chakras, he encouraged the heart chakra, the heart center, to operate from there. All the other so-called chakras will come under the umbrella of the heart center.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. So it's not necessarily higher to be in the quote unquote higher centers.
I'll tell you something interesting. I'll see if this makes sense, but back in the mid-'70s, we were in Mandalay Hall with Erich, and there were about 20 or 30 of us. And we got on the subject of the higher self and the lower self. And the discussion went on for about an hour, and Erich was sharing things that Baba had said, and he was open to questions and things like that. And then one person said to Erich, Erich, I have a feeling what we're doing here is we've divided the lower self into a higher and lower. And the lower part of the lower self is trying to realize the higher side of the lower self. I have a feeling that the higher self is something altogether different. And Erich shot that person such a look of surprise acknowledgement. And the higher side of the lower self are all the planes of consciousness.
Wow.
And all the planes there, and they're very attractive. But Baba said we have to even let go of the spiritual, so we can go from let go of the gross, let go of the spiritual, and turn to the real, which is Baba's divine presence. So Darwin would call that a spiritual bypass. You can bypass the spiritual and go directly into Baba's presence, in Baba's orbit. So a lot of people, just kind of innocently think they're, making progress, but they're just making progress within the lower self. And the higher self is outside that domain, but it's with Baba. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it did had a profound effect on me when I heard this back in the 70s.
Thank you. That is immensely helpful. I've never heard that put like that, and it makes perfect sense.
All the planes of consciousness, all the high spiritual experiences, our most sublime experiences, are just the higher side of the lower self.
Wow.
I mean, and Darwin used to say, and you're here, but others have heard this. Darwin used to say, sooner or later, you discover you're nobody, and that is not an unhappy discovery. You're not trying to realize your spiritual self. You're trying to realize Baba by vacating yourself so he can come in and live your life. We are offered a bypass, a different approach. It's the greatest. Kitty used to say, her favorite line in the Bible, Kitty Davy, was, "Not I, but Christ liveth in me." So you give up the spiritual and you get Baba's presence in you.
Wow, thank you.
I don't know if that makes sense, but Erich really highlighted that, the importance of that.
That feels like a paradigm shifting piece of information.
Yeah, it's a different paradigm, effacement, rather than self realization or spirit, realizing your spiritual potential. This is like vacating the premises. Yeah.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
This is Larice.
Yeah.
Apropos to seeing with the heart and the heart energy, and then I'm sorry, the man who just spoke about the chakras.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of research about the energy of, when we're in our head and the human body and the energy field. Mm-hmm. And apparently when we're in our heart, that energy can go out 50 feet. And the energy field of being in the heart, and where the rest of it is like, a foot or two, or 3 or 4 feet at the most, and so that it's so much more powerful for us to be in our heart. And then there's this Institute of Heart Math that actually says that when we're in our heart, our brain waves actually synchronize with our heart waves.
Yeah.
And then there's also a Native American saying that the distance between the head and the heart is the longest distance in the world. It's like, it's miles and miles. And, so, there's just everything is like, yes, the heart, but it's really nice to hear Darwin talk and you talk about the eyes of the heart. I've never heard that concept before.
Yeah.
Wow. If I was living there and looking at people through that, well, my whole life would change. Literally, if I really consciously, worked from that place, I think my whole life, everything would change. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it will happen. Baba's hard at work at it. I don't know if I mentioned this on Effort and Grace, but it might have been on an after thing, but there was one fellow, Robert Dreyfus, who went to see Baba in 1965. And he was 25 at the time, and he saw Baba at Merazad. And when he came back, passing through New York, the New York Baba group, the Monday night group, grabbed him and asked him to give a talk on what it was like to meet Baba. So, you know, these are mainly the older people, and they'd all met Baba. But anyway, he sits up in the front of the room there. And they asked him, okay, what was it like to meet Baba? He said, I went from here to here. You can't see it. I went from his head to his heart. And that was the end of his talk. He wouldn't say anything else. That's a long journey from the head to the heart. I mean, for consciousness, to go from the head to the heart is a long journey. It's not easy. And as I say, to stay in the heart is a great place of joy and a great place of suffering. To stay there, to plant your flag in the heart is it's a battle. The winds are heavy. But I think of the mind is three-dimensional and the heart is multidimensional. The heart has great substance, but the heart is not the destination. The soul is the destination. So we eventually have to let go of the heart to go into the soul. The heart divides things into me and other. It divides the universe in two. You know, I love Baba. Baba loves me. And when we get to the soul, there's just oneness. We have to give up duality for oneness. And so it's hard to leave this. It's hard to leave. I mean, Darwin talked about it. It's hard to leave the heart and go to the unknown, which is the soul. You know. But anyway, yeah.
Jeff,
But that's our destination. Is the next stop is the soul.
Jeff, my experience of really genuinely being in my heart, in that place of love, is not dualistic. It's not a me and them, me and Baba, me and anybody else. It's really, truly a unity. Divisions aren't even a question. It's an experience that all of those kind of thought projections fall away, and that place of love is yet a different dimension.
Yeah, and Baba says we have fleeting moments of union with God, union with the soul. I mean, so you can, I mean, you kind of seem like you're experiencing it in your heart, but you know, you can experience your soul in your heart while you're in your heart. And every little experience of that creates an addiction, you know? So yeah, we do have those kinds of experiences in the course of the day, whether we're aware of it or not.
Perhaps it is that I simply haven't even met my soul yet, but my heart, I have some experience with.
Yeah, no, I'm sure I mean, Darwin was saying we're having deep experiences in the course of the day. We're just not aware of it. All of us, you know, when you do something out of love, just thoughtlessly out of love, where did that come from? Sometimes that comes directly from the soul, right through you. It gets done and you don't even hardly remember it, you know. Oh, we're closer. All these things are all very close. Yeah. And nice to see you, Janet. I mean, we were just a name there for a while.
This is my downtime from 3 to 5, so I like to lie down on my couch.
Yeah.
So I hide myself so people don't have to see me lying down. But now I'm ready to sit up again. But
Yeah.
Jeff, I just have to say, I really totally repeat what Marvin said. I think it was Marvin. I mean, the opportunity to be part of this group for these weeks has deepened my, has had a Baba deepening effect on me. It is like being in Myrtle Beach in a way. And yeah, my gratitude is moving from my soul to my heart, or my heart to my soul. It's deep. All I can tell you is that.
No.
It's a deep gratitude. So
Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, everybody is kept from coming to the center where they do have, Baba has this very expansive experience, and you get drenched, and we're all kind of deprived of that. But here we are.
this feels like at least a light rain every week.
Yeah, this is a carbon copy.
Yeah, right. So I am, yeah, I feel Baba is giving us, or at least for me, this as a, it makes all of this totally worthwhile.
Yeah, and we are, that last message that Baba gave, that we would be on the alphabet board in 1954, where he said we would be held together by internal links.
Yeah.
And these internal links, I always felt need to be honored and revered, you might say, because this is your whole support system for the next 700 years.
Whoa.
All these people around, we're going to help each other out.
Mm.
If one of us falls, there are three of us that happen to be standing to lift us out, lift us up.
Blowing kisses to every one of you.
Yeah. No.
For the next 700 years. That's a wonderful thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe he's making us clean our house inside and out so that we'll be pure enough to see him in the next Advent and be with him.
Yeah, and here we are again. We thought, oh, wow, what's going to happen? Last time we were probably wondering, where are we going to find Bob again? And here we are. Or he found us. I mean, I feel that we were all with Baba in the 1920s or 30s or 40s or 50s, or some of you, the 60s. We have been with Baba. I mean, I'm convinced there's no way we could have gone for somebody that's 10,000 miles away, who's no longer physically on Earth, a completely different religious tradition or whatever. And here we are. We know this. We know him. We know him because we have met him and been with him. I'm convinced of it. And a number of people have had past life recollections to actually have that substantiated. Yeah. So here we are again. Yeah.
Dave Lohman is raising his hand.
Yeah, Dave.
Jeff, I have a problem differentiating in between opening up my heart and or my soul to Meher Baba and to God, and getting my dishes done and sweeping the floor and going to the bathroom and taking a shower and going to work. How can I do it all the time without being committed to an asylum?
Okay. I'll tell you, that you folks are here. This was an exchange with Erich. I mean, some of you have probably heard this, but back in the mid-'70s, I was working as a house painter in Myrtle Beach. And we were painting these fancy places next door, Briarcliff, and they were very fussy. But I was kind of, back then, I was kind of a Baba remembers machine. So I was like, I would be painting and I go Baba, Baba, Baba inwardly, you know, painting and sanding and all of that. And that was my method. And I was kind of a little bit nuts about it. And then 6 months later, the guy that I was working for and I were in India. And we were sitting, one day we were sitting outside Mandalay Hall. It was Erich and this guy, Price Branch, and I. And Price says, you know, Erich, I'm a house painter. And whole hours go by, I haven't thought about Baba. I'm just concentrating on painting and everything. And I mean, the most important thing is Baba has come, and I'm wasting hours not thinking about Baba. And this is what Erich said. This was pivotal in my life. He said, in the beginning, it's important to remember Baba, to say his name, to read his books, to go where he's been, to see the movies. But in time, it becomes important to forget yourself. When you forget yourself in activities, Baba can live through you. Even if you're not aware of it, he can live through you. So he said, go and paint, you know, get lost in the painting. You know, for me, this was like, I was a Baba remembers machine, and I was losing some of the joy of life because I was just remembering Baba all the time. And instead of going off and playing volleyball, I was out there in the volleyball court remembering Baba. And so I just go out there and play volleyball. And then when I come off of the court, I remember Baba. Erich would say, when you do remember, remember Baba. So it was a kind of a self-forgetfulness and a Baba remembrance. They were complementary. They complemented each other. They complemented each other. So this, I don't know if this, you know, Dave was asking about that. You can, you know, get into doing the dishes, get into going to the grocery store. And if you happen to remember Baba, you know, remember him. But I asked Margaret Crass dancers, you know, they had met Baba, they devoted Baba. I said, when you were doing these you know, serious performances, I mean, they were top in the field of ballet. Were you remembering Baba when you're up on the stage? And they said, no, it didn't work. They would remember Baba before the dance, then they would go out and get lost in the dance, and they would remember Baba afterwards. So that's, like I say, that was very helpful, very helpful to me, and it might, you know, might ring a bell with you folks. Sometimes you get into gardening and you get lost in the gardening, but normally when you come out of the gardening, Baba's right there. You weren't you hadn't lost him.
He was gardening.
Yeah. He was gardening through you or whatever. Hey, Shraddha. So anyway.
The old Christians used to say, when you lose yourself, then you can find God, but they used to call the activity the glory of the grind.
Uh-huh.
The glory of the grind.
Glory
and
of
to
the
throw
grind.
yourself, to not resist your daily responsibilities, but throw yourself in it in such a way that you've lost yourself, you can even enjoy it, and you just do it. And all of a sudden, kind of Baba does it for you, really, in a way. He's with you.
Yeah.
He can come in. And it's a nice feeling. It's not heavy, light.
Yeah, another way of saying, Baba says to do your responsibilities wholeheartedly. That's, but you don't necessarily have to be remembering Baba all the time. I mean, because Adi asked Baba, you know, I'm studying for college. This is Adi K. Irani. And how can I remember you and study at the same time? Baba said, just remember before you study, do your studies, and then remember me afterwards. So a lot of life is like that. And yeah. Yeah, any, Jeremy, what's going on up there in New York?
I think the same as everywhere, pretty much. The one funny thing was that when we had our moment of silence, it was exactly 7 o'clock. And so actually, like out my window, there was lots of cheering and cowbell ringing. So that's what was happening.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what you all are talking about resonates with me a lot. Like I sometimes like I have been the last couple of few years I've had a lot of anxiety in ways I've never had before, and I found, like, kind of to your point, Jeff, sometimes if I'm feeling really anxious and I'll try to like say Baba's name a lot, it can almost like it's almost like I'm too attached to that activity, and if I just say Baba's name once and then just kind of try to be still, it almost helps me to calm down and center myself more and just like allow Baba to do whatever he's going to do, as opposed to kind of like clenching onto it so much. So that's something that kind of works for me.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometime I'll tell you folks about something with Darwin and Baba's name and Sarosh, one of the Mandali. Hey, so Dave, do those dishes, make that dinner, mow that lawn.
Would it be helpful to, at the same time, in doing the best I can to mow the lawn or whatever, would it help to see people, to see the Baba in people around me?
Excellent. Whatever your heart, whatever is prompted by your heart at the time.
Then this is going to be a really easy step.
Yeah, yeah.
And fun.
Yeah. Any other questions or anything to share?
My Baba face, you got the goodest little Baba face.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
You just did another teaser. So what's the thing that happened with Sarosh?
Well, I mean, if no one has anything, I mean, if
You could do that now.
what's that?
We don't want to wait a week.
Okay. I mean, this Sarosh is one of the early Mandali. He was Adi's cousin, and he came to Baba when he was about 18, young kid and everything, and he was from Ahmednagar. And but I saw him later on, and he would say his whole thing for Baba, I mean, he worked as a businessman, and he was one of the people who supported Baba's life financially. But his whole thing was to take Baba's name. I wish I could stand up a little bit. He would do this. He said all he would do is just go Baba, 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 inwardly. You know, Baba would just pound away in his heart. And you know, he would carry out and do his duty. Didn't look like he was especially devotional. He was just carrying on. So anyway, after Baba dropped his body, he came to New York in 1971, I believe it was. I happened to be in New York and I saw him. But Darwin said that the moment he touched American soil in New York, Darwin could feel him, you know, 3 or 4 hours away in Schenectady, New York, upstate New York. He said there were waves and waves of love that were emanating from, from New York. Eventually, Soros went up to Boston, and Darwin and Jean were coming from Boston over from Schenectady over to Boston. And the closer they got, the more and more powerful they felt these waves of love. And when they got there, and they finally got to the house, and it was so powerful, Baba's presence. And what did they find? They found Soros he was just sitting there kind of with a jigger of whiskey, just looking boringly at some brochure. He had no idea. I mean, Darwin said it was clear. He had no idea what was emanating from him for miles and miles around. I mean, totally effaced from what was emanating from him. So that gives you the power of Baba's name. I mean, when you're doing it your whole life and you take it to that level. And like I say, he didn't have any idea that what was coming from him.
Well, when I said, that the heart, they say it can go out 50 feet, but, I was thinking, I didn't say this, like Baba's 17 miles around the center and energy. And it's like, this is like, obviously Baba's name, he was like in his heart, right? And this is like 4 hours away. It can be felt, because he spent his life saying Baba's name and being with Baba and being Baba's mandali. And oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Oh, there's great substance and power in Baba's name if you take a liking to it. I did ask Darwin if that was his practice, and it wasn't his practice, even though he was thinking and talking about Baba just about all day, you might say. But that wasn't a particular thing that he did, but most of the mandali did take Baba's name inwardly behind what they were doing. So if I have spare time and I don't know what to do, I always have that to do, Never without something to do in the remembrance of Baba. We got Rakesh from Bombay there, yeah. Any other? And Theus knows that he was up there at the tomb and there was a guy, Nanakar, and that was his whole thing, is taking Baba's name. With every footstep, everything,
My first trip to India, and I'm Jewish, so I didn't want to go in, I was like, oh my God, this is against God going here. And then I walked in there and Nanakar was there and he said, welcome home. And I was like, oh my God, and he hugged me. I was like, wow, this is really cool. I was like, wow, was I lucky, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that was his practice.
Welcome home. Every time I walked through there, I felt like I was in Jerusalem or some ancient place. I felt like I was home. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's.
I have one comment, and then I won't say too much. I was sitting on my couch, and I moved here because when you were all talking about the heart and everything, I've got such a nice apartment because the sun comes in, and it was so bright. And I said, well, just stay in the light and stay out of the dark, because there's so many dark things going on that Baba doesn't want us to be in the dark. He wants us to be happy, so be happy. And the people that choose to be out there and, do that stuff, it's kind of, I hope I don't know why they do these things, but maybe it's just their consciousness hasn't quite woke up yet like it should, I think there's a time for everybody to find things, when you're ready.
Yeah, they're just, luckily, there are millions of ways to remember Baba, which is beautiful.
Well, everything is
everybody has a special, unique way.
So do you remember in Mara's book, the green book, how I think it's in there's a picture of how Baba had her write his name over and over and over again. And it's like, they're tiny. I mean, there's thousands of them. And recently, I'm going to say in the last couple of months, I was on a meeting some business meeting, I think. And I was getting triggered. I was getting upset. And I just took the piece of paper I had and I wrote Baba's name hundreds of times. Because it wasn't, I needed to pay, there was something, I can't remember what it was, but I was not feeling centered. And that is so soothing to just write his name when I can't say it out loud or I need to pay attention or something. But I can do it in a way that, I mean, that's another powerful way to take his name.
Yeah. Anything, you know, we have this, as Darwin calls it, an inner barometer. Erich would call it this gadget. And you can tell whether something resonates for you, whether it lightens your state or whether it brings you down. And you can just test it and see. If you're in a bad mood and you find that writing Baba's name thousands of times and it changes your mood, you know, that inner barometer knows, hey, that works for you. Yeah. I'm sure you all have a whole repertoire of things to get yourself out of moods or get yourself into a more inspired state. There's a whole array of things, you know. It doesn't have to be just remember Baba directly. It can be playing with your grandchild or listening to a piece of music or reading mystical poetry, whatever can inspire you and elevate your heart. Yeah. So Elizabeth, you got a guy, Josh here. He's from Australia. I don't know if you can see Josh.
No.
I'm here. Can you see me?
I don't know where you are. No.
So I'm the one talking.
Yeah.
Oh, you're up on top. Okay, I got you.
Now
Yeah.
I am, yeah.
You're right
Are you
next
from
to me.
Australia as well?
From Brisbane and Canberra. Long
Yeah.
time ago, though.
Yeah.
Lost my accent, I think.
Yeah.
Where are you from, Josh?
I'm in the Blue Mountains at the moment. Yeah, just holding tight. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great to be part of this Zoom session, you know. It's incredible that we can participate in how far it is across the world. Like I can see the sun just going down in some people's houses and the sun's just coming up here, and it's massive. Yeah.
Hey, well, I think I'm going to have some dinner, but unless there's any last thing that anybody has to share or whatever. Oh, hey, there's Julie. Hey, love to your mom and dad. Special love. Joan
Mom
and
is listening in today.
Oh, your mom is?
I had her on the phone. I ended a little while ago because it had been an hour, and she really enjoyed it. And that's an easy way. I can be on Zoom. She can be on the phone.
Yeah.
Oh.
You don't mind telling your story. The people that are here, I'm sure, haven't heard your dad's story.
Yeah, and I can tell them both quickly because I tend to be succinct. But for next week, Jeff, here's my question. It has to do with what is the process in your knowing or reading or anything about emptying so completely that Baba lives through you. And that must come in moments at first. And is there a, like, no thought, or there could be thought? If you have any insight into that process.
Yeah, how to empty out.
Well, and what happens? Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is, I've talked about this before, but sometime I'll say how Darwin really brought home to us, this is back in 1970, how to empty yourself out. And I'll just say it. Well, I won't give the how it all happened. It happened over a period of a month of how he kind of brought it home to us. But if you focus on your deeper feelings, how you're feeling now, And if you say, suppose you're feeling anxiety, or you're feeling resentment, or you're feeling joy, imagine that that is flowing to Baba. That either Baba in front of you or Baba within you, however you want to locate Baba. And if that flows to you, those impressions that make up that anxiety or that, you know, or joy or whatever, those go to Baba. And Darwin used to say, Baba is impressionless being. So any impressions that go to him are dissolved. They are gone forever. They're really gone. But there's a layer behind it that looks just like the one you gave him, so it doesn't seem like you gave him anything. But you got to push past that and give him the next layer and the next layer. And Darwin said, that's only the first, that's one part of it. As you give things to Baba and they're dissolved, you make more room for Baba to live in you. You're creating inner space. You're clearing out your heart. You're clearing out your warehouse. So that, and it can be done at any time during the day. But one day Darwin, this is back in the 70s, one day Darwin said, even the good takes up space. So the only thing that doesn't take up space is love. Love doesn't displace anything. But you can give them your love too. I mean, but what I mean is that you can be offloading all of this stuff. You know, you have a confrontation at work or something, and there's some negative feelings that come up. Those feelings can be given to Baba, and they are gone. You know, Baba gave me he flashed this to me one time when I was giving to Baba, and I didn't see any results. And I was at the front of a cafeteria with Darwin and Jean, and you know, at the front of a cafeteria they have those dinner plates that are spring-loaded. You take one plate off, and another one pops up, and you take another one. Well, Baba said, you know, I was dealing with dread, a deep feeling of dread. And Baba was saying, you know, you're giving me your dread, a plate of dread, and you look down and there's no change. You give me another plate of dread, there's no change. But meanwhile, the stack is diminishing unseen below. That's what Baba flashed to me. Does that make any sense? You think, oh, well, huh?
That's perfect. So you're emptying out, and then he takes up the space.
Yeah. You give him your, and not only that, you give him your impatience. You give him your anger, he gives you patience. You give him your stinginess, he gives you generosity. You know, I mean, there's an exchange that's going on. You know, but and then when you get like Darwin, you pretty much emptied out a lot of things. So, or Kitty or the Mandali. So Baba's the one, you become a shell, and he's in there living the life.
And it's, I mean, that's something he wants, to have more of us emptied and living as him.
Yeah.
It's a new picture for me to imagine all of us running around as him.
Yeah.
It's a nice picture. We
Yeah.
should have a meeting one day where we all put on that costume.
Yeah. I mean, it's, yeah, I've always found I like to see people, rather than trying to see Baba in others, I like to see Baba as others, as Baba in disguise. That works better for me. To see that, you know, Baba is disguised as Heidi up there, you know, you know, or Babs, you know. I mean, to see, because it really is so. That works better for me than that Baba is inside of Julie. I mean, because then you get two people, you know, there's Julie, and I'd rather have you all just one container, you might say.
Very nice. I could hear that again.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So Nan is indicating that.
That's ready.
Hey, Anthony, great to see you. Josh, fantastic to see you. And, you know, Shraddha.
Thank you.
And Marcia from Chicago. And, yeah, Babs is from Costa Rica.
Wow.
Betty, yeah. And then we've got, there's Tala and Shruti. I don't see them, but the people who are from India, they have a hard time. They're either going to get the visual, or I mean, they have a hard time getting both the visual and the audio. So so we can't see them, but they're lurking.
Well,
Yeah.
it's nice if you don't get to participate that you put it on YouTube so you can
Yeah. Anyway, much love to all of you, and
Thank you.
Baba there. He
Bye-bye, everybody.
loves and adores you.
Jeff and everybody.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
See you next week.
Jai Baba.
Hey, Baba.
What time they started?
Baba.
Hey, Baba.
Jai Baba.
Hey, Rakesh.
What time they started?
What's that?
What time did the meeting start, the gathering start?
Well, we started at our time at 5:30. So that was. Yeah, you guys are in the middle of the night.
Yeah. So that's 2 hours back?
Yeah, it was about, let's see, it was 5:30. Yeah, it's a little over 2 hours. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's probably about 3 or 4 in the morning for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 5:30 in the morning over here.
Yeah. So, hey, not wonderful to see you. Well, I don't see you, but great that you're there. And
Everyone is sleeping. I can't switch on the lights.
Which Shruti is this?
I think she's Jyoti's sister.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, much love to all of you, and have a lovely, and Dave, do those dishes and mow that lawn and interact with those neighbors. Okay. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.